Okay, today's daf is Shabbat Nun Tet. We're going to start at the top. I want to start back at what we saw yesterday, which was that in the context of one of the brightot that we brought, we saw that if you have a bell with a clapper and the clapper is removed, the bell still has impurity to it. So the question is why? If it's no longer useful, then why should it be impure? So we saw that Abai gave an answer, and he said, because because it's very easy to just put the clapper back into the bell, therefore we view this as if it's still a utensil. However, Rava disagreed. I'm not going to bring this whole contradiction, but he contradicts Abai, and therefore he says, he says that the bell is still usable because even though you can't ring it using the clapper, but you can take it and knock it onto something that's an earthenware vessel and it'll make noise. So like we discussed yesterday about the bowl, if you have a bowl that all of a sudden gets a big hole in it, as long as you can still put pomegranates in it and it's still worthy to be used in its original form, in other words, it's not exactly like it was originally, but it can still fulfill a similar purpose, meaning a bell can also still make noise. So therefore, that must be what it's usable for. That was Rabba's answer. Itmar Nami, it was also stated that Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, that not only did Rabba say this in Babylonia, but also Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina said it in Israel. So we started with Abaya's answer, since you can easily just put the clapper back in, that's why. We have Rabba's answer, which is now also Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina's answer, since it can still be used as a bell. Now we're going to have a third answer of Rabbi Yochanan, and with that we're going to deal with for a little while. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, because you can use it for a baby to drink from. We saw this before with the shofar. You think about the way they lived and how, even something like a bell, right, they might use, if they were desperate, they might use for a little child to drink from. Now that is a totally different use than it was used for before. That's not anything similar to a bell. So here it says, since you could use it for a tinok, Rabbi Yochanan says that makes it still a utensil, even though it's an entirely different purpose. So now the Gemara is going to question this. For Rabbi Yochanan, doesn't Rabbi Yochanan hold elsewhere that in order for something to be considered a utensil, it has to still have the original, it has to be somewhat similar to what the original purpose of the utensil was. And this is nothing similar to what the original purpose was. How do we know this? Well, first we're going to learn a braita, and then we're going to learn Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar's debate regarding a halacha that kind of is a bit of an outgrowth of the braita. So the braita says, "V'hatanya, v'kol kli asher yashev alav hazav." If this is a zav, is someone with a discharge. Him and a nida and a yoledet, there's a special type of tumah for all these people, where it's called tumat midras. It means if they sit on something or lie on something, and it has to be something that generally people lie down on or sit on, like a couch or let's say a leather cloth that people would use to cover a couch with. So anything that they sit on, yitma, okay, becomes tamei. Now, the Braita asks, Yachol kafa se'ah v'yashav aleha. Kafa tirka v'yashav aleha. What if you took a measuring utensil? A se'ah is something that measures of the volume of a se'ah. And a tirkav is something that measures the volume of a tirkav. These are different measurements. And the measuring cup was called by the measurement. So let's say you have a utensil where you measure. Okay, take a measuring cup in your house. And you flip it upside down. And you sit on it. So now the zav has sat on that. Is the zav going to make that item impure? Because you're sitting on it. It says, kol asher yeshev alav. Anything he sits on, it sounds like, even if it's not really something that's generally used for sitting. So you might think that's tamei. Talmud lamar asher yeshev alav hazav. Now Rashi says it's because it says yeshev in the future, and it doesn't say asher yashav alav or yishkav alav hazav or yeshev alav. It says it in the future, not in the past, and therefore it says they learn from here. It must be yeshev alav, meaning he will also sit on it in the future, meaning. Misha miyuchad liyeshiva, it's only something that you would generally use for sitting and not something that you would never, or you wouldn't necessarily next time. Yatzazeh shomrim lo, and here come the words that are important. We remove from the general rules something that, we remove anything that, here's their criteria, that she'omrim lo amod v'na'aseh melachtenu. Let's say I take the measuring cup and I flip it upside down and I sit on it. And then in comes someone into my kitchen and they want to cook. And they say, wait, I need the measuring cup, get up and give me the measuring cup, right? At that point, I'm going to have to get up. Now, generally, somebody wouldn't say, give me your couch, I need it for, measuring something. Generally, that wouldn't happen. That's the thing, yeshev alav. But if it's something that's used for other things, and someone might say, get up, I need it for whatever its use is, meaning it's not its traditional use, then that's not tumat midras. Okay, now, at this point, the Gemara is going to make a bit of a leap. Okay, this is what we call tchilat tumah. This is, can something become pure in the first place? So basically, they're saying if it's something that generally people don't use for sitting on, then it won't be tamei tumat midras. Now, tumat midras is a unique type of tumah that generally doesn't apply by other tumah, like a sheretz, creepy crawler, or a tumat mate, doesn't apply to things that people sit on. It's not, the tumah doesn't work that way. It's unique to this category. And this is talking, like I said, tchilat tumah. Now, there's something called sof tumah, which is what we were discussing, which is if something became tameh, and then, let's say something happened to the kli, and the kli broke. Remember what we learned that, let's say an earthenware vessel, if it breaks, it's no longer impure. Right? Once it's broken and it's not usable anymore, it's no longer impure. What if you had a kli that was, you could sit on, okay? It was something, let's say a couch, and then the couch breaks. Now, if the couch is usable for something else, would it still have tumah? Okay, so now Rabbi Elazar Omer, "B'midrasot omrim amo v'na'asa melachtenu, ve'ein omrim b'tzvei met amo v'na'asa melachtenu." Now, what's a little bit difficult about this Gemara is, just note, and there are some who understand it differently, but I'm going to explain it the way it's generally explained. The amo v'na'asa melachtenu here is a little bit different than the one we talked about previously. Before we said that if you take your measuring utensil and use it as a couch or as a bench or something, as a stool, and then and then because it's not generally used, it won't be tameh, and this is unique for midras. Now they want to know, what about the case that I just described? Would the case, now they're using the same wording even though they mean something a little bit different. When they say here, amod v'na'aseh melachtenu, they mean if the utensil broke, would it still be used for its original purpose? Let's say you have this broken couch. So we look at the couch and we say like this: if the couch broke and you can't sit on it anymore, but you can use it, let's say, as a table. So that would be something different. So comes Rabbi Elazar and he says like this: when it comes to tumat midras, if we want to know, is it still tameh, what do we look at? We look at, just like when it became tameh, likewise when it leaves its tameh status, we say, amo v'na'asa melachtenu. Does it still have the original purpose? Can it still be used as a couch? And if the answer is no, then it's not going to be tamei tumat midras. But ein omrim b'tzvei met amo v'na'asa melachtenu. But if, for example, you had something in your house that became tamei tumat met, and then it broke. Now, it wasn't totally unusable, but it was usable for something different. According to him, he would say, that's not a criteria. For tamei met, and he means here all other tumah other than midras, we're basically going to say, we don't care, as long as it's usable, it's still tamei. It can be usable for anything, it doesn't make a difference. It's only a unique halacha by midras. So what they do is they take this issue by midras about, is something at all considered something for sitting on, like a measuring cup, and since the criteria is, would someone say, give it to me and I need it for what its original purpose was, and then it's not going to be, and we're going to say, since you're using it for an atypical purpose, therefore it's not going to be tamei tumat midras. He then extends that to tumat midras when it comes to getting rid of tumah. So if you had something that was a bench, let's say from the beginning, but it broke and now it's usable only for something else, then it's not going to be tamei, but it's only for midras. Everything else, that wouldn't be a factor. But Rabbi Yochanan Amar, and that's what we were looking at, Af Omer b'tamei met amo v'na'asa melachtenu. He says, no, when it comes to tumat met and all other tumot, it has to be that the kli is used for its original purpose. Once it breaks and can't be used for its original purpose, even if you could use it for something else, the tumah leaves it. It's not tamei because of the new kli. Okay? So now, that contradicts what Rabbi Yochanan said previously, because he said if you take out the clapper, or the clapper falls out, or whatever happens to it, and now you can use it as a cup for a child to drink with, That's why it's still tamei. Well, that makes no sense, according to Rabbi Yochanan said over there. So now, what does the Gemara say? This is a very simple answer the Gemara likes to give sometimes. Ipuch kamaita, swap the shitot in the beginning. Meaning, if you remember, we started off, and if you look at the sheet, I'll help you organize. We have three answers, if you remember. The second answer was Rava, and then we said that Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina in Israel also said the same thing as Rava. Since you can knock it against a kli cheres, and it can still be used as a bell, even without the clapper, therefore it works. So therefore it's still tamei. Rabbi Yochanan said, since you can drink, so switch it. Say that Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina said the part about the kid drinking, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one who said the part about since it can still be used as a bell. And therefore we basically say we were confused about who said what. We swapped the shitot, and that resolves it. So the Gemara's obvious question, which we've seen before, why are you swapping those? Why didn't you swap Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan? You could have said, maybe Rabbi Yochanan really doesn't need that it has to be like its original use. So what do they say? We see from a different source that Rabbi Yochanan needs it to be like its original, be used for its original purpose from a different source. What's this source? Ditnan, it should be a Mishnah, okay? It should say Ditnan, which means we learn in a Mishnah. Ditani means we learn in a Braita. Remember, a Braita is something that didn't make it into the Mishnah or the Tosefta. It's an outside source from the same time period. So it says in a Mishnah, okay, it's a Mishnah in Kelim, Sandal shel behema shel matechet tameh. If you have a sandal of an animal, we saw that mentioned in the Mishnah before, if you remember, the sandal of the animal. We said there, a sandal of an animal can't go out with it, right? Whereas people can go out with sandals. We said that was one of the chumros that we have for animals, not for people. So the sandal of an animal, if it's made of matechet, metal, tameh, it's tameh. So now they say, what do you mean? Didn't we say that a sandal, we also said this in our Mishnah before, that a sandal isn't something you could go out with because it's not considered clothing for the animal. If it's not clothing or jewelry or something, then it's not a utensil. We said jewelry for an animal, something decorative it's not considered a utensil. So why would we call this a kli that can accept tumah? Lamai chaze, what's its value? So Amar Rav, ra'oi v'shtopel mayim b'milchama. If you're desperate, you're in a time of war, you can take off this sandal that the animal's wearing, and since it's rounded at the bottom, you can pick it up. By the way, they say we're talking about a horse and things like that, which don't have split hooves. They can wear sandals. If you have split hooves, it's going to be more complicated. But anyway, you can take off the sandal and drink from it. So he says, now that's obviously not its original purpose. Rabbi Chanina amar ra'oi lasuch bo shemen b'milchama. You can put oil in there and anoint yourself with oil if you need in a time of war. I assume the time of war is just because you wouldn't have anything else on you, right? That's when you're kind of stuck without a lot of things. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, if you're in the middle of a battle and you need shoes so that you don't step on thorns or something like that, you might put on, if you're desperate, let's say your shoe broke or something happened, you might be desperate and you might want to use the shoe from the animal. Now, in this case, what do you see about Rabbi Yochanan? He only thinks it's worthy for something that's similar to its original purpose. It's true. Shoes for an animal is not the same as shoes for a human, but the truth is, what are the shoes for the animal? It's to protect the animal from stepping on thorns. Likewise, for the human, protects the man from stepping on thorns. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it has to be used for its original purpose, which is why when we have to switch one of the approaches, right, one of the machlokot, we're going to switch it in the original one and say that in our case, where the clapper comes out of the bell, it's going to be that Rabbi Yochanan must have been the one who said, since it can still be used as a bell by knocking it against something else, that's why it's considered still tameh, impure. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about these three approaches we saw about the sandal of the animal. Rav said you can drink water in the battle. Rabbi Chanina said you could use it for oil, for anointing, for putting on your skin. And Rabbi Yochanan said it's for running with. So my ben Rav Rabbi Chanina. The first two approaches, what's the difference? Whether you say water or whether you say oil, who cares, right? They're basically one and the same. You could use it as a utensil for putting something inside. So why would Rabbi Chanina have to offer a different approach? The difference between them is if it gets disgusting, And dirty, you're not going to want to put water in it and drink from it, but you might want to still put oil in it. Ben Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina, ika benayu de yakir. The difference between the second two approaches, Rabbi Chanina who says use it for oil, and Rabbi Yochanan who says you could use it for shoes, would make a difference if it was very heavy. You could have a sandal that's incredibly heavy, and because it's so heavy, then you might end up with, you wouldn't run in it. You can't run in super heavy shoes. So therefore, right, and it's certainly not usable if you're in the middle of a battle and you're running away from someone. So therefore, it would still, theoretically, you could use it for oil, but you wouldn't use it to run. And that would be a difference between. Okay, that was all an aside because of this Breita that we quoted yesterday that had to do with our Mishnah, but this part already didn't really have to do with our Mishnah. We got into Tum and Tara. Now we're back to our Mishnah. So if you remember, our Mishnah listed at the end of the Mishnah all these jewelry that women would wear, okay, that women can't go out with. Below Be'ir Shal Zahav, I'll just read them quickly. Below Bekatla, we'll see in a few minutes what a katla is. Lo Benizam, and what an Ir Shal Zahav is. Lo Benizamim, not with nose rings. Notice it doesn't say earrings. Below B'tabat she'en aleha chotam. Okay, we'll stop there because those are the ones we're going to deal with today. And not with a ring that doesn't have a seal on. The assumption is, it doesn't have a seal, then it's jewelry. If it has a seal already, then it's not jewelry. What's the whole issue with jewelry? That women will come to take off their jewelry and show their friends. Although today we're going to see maybe not all women do this. Maybe it's the average woman, but not, we'll get to it soon. Not an Isha Chashuva. Okay, a very prominent woman wouldn't do that. It's something more the locals do or the regulars do, but not the prominent women. In Daf Mishalanu of Shir and Chamutal that's on our site in Hebrew, they have a whole discussion about the differences between men and women, and they compare. It's more based on sugya that's going to come up soon, but starts already on our page about women and what's the nature of women versus the nature of men, and how certain things are the opposite by women than they are by men. Anyway, we're going to get into these things over the next few pages. So now we have this Ir Shal Zahav. My Ir Shal Zahav, Rabba Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan, Yerushalayim de Dahab. Yerushalayim of gold, okay, which still doesn't really help us, but it was obviously a very known ornament called Yerushalayim Shal Zahav. There's different opinions about it, whether it was a tiara that they would wear with, a depiction of Jerusalem, or it was some other kind of jewelry that had this depiction. Whatever it was a depiction of Jerusalem, and it was a known jewel. How do we know? Where else have we heard about this? Okay, his Rabbi Akiva promised it to his wife. Okay, you remember the famous story of Rabbi Akiva where he married Rachel. She was the daughter of Kalba Savua, who was very wealthy, and then because Rabbi Akiva wasn't religious, he was, or wasn't knowledgeable at all. He didn't know any Torah. So Kalba Savua disowns her, and they're basically very poor. And they're like lying in hay, and she gets hay in her hair, and she starts, and he says to her, listen, I promise you that I'll buy you when I get wealthy. If I ever get wealthy, I'll buy you, I'll get you this Ir Shal Zahav, and he gives her this. Eventually, he gives it to her, which is what we see here, with the Avile Rabbi Akiva L'Debitu, as he gave her his wife. Okay, this Yerushalayim Shal Zahav, this funny story that in the Koran they quote from the Yerushalmi. I didn't see it inside the Yerushalmi, but he quotes, if you have the Koran, he says, it's told that the wife of the Nasi, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, complained to him that she doesn't have such a fancy jewel. And he said to her, you would have done for me what Rabbi Akiva's wife did for him. And he basically says she deserved to get that because she sacrificed all that time that he went to learn and she was by herself, right? So he said, if you would do that for me, which obviously she didn't need to because he already, So anyway, he says, you weren't worthy of getting it. Okay, so just kind of a funny story. So anyway, they bring you a proof of, that's where we've heard of this before. Tanu Rabbanan. Now we're going to see a Breita about this. Lo tetzei isha be'ir shal zahav. She shouldn't go out wearing this. No. According to our Mishnah, I just want to remind you, it's all forbidden only from the rabbis. By Torah law, she can go out in it because it's considered jewelry. Because it's considered jewelry, it's okay. But because it's considered jewelry, from the rabbis, they said, wait, we're worried she's going to come to take it off. So now we're going to see a three-way debate about this. Is it really, our Mishnah says it's Asr Midrabanan. But now we're going to see two other extreme positions about it. Lo tesei isha be'ir shal zahav ve'im yatzta chayevet chatat divrei Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Meir, it's Asr Midoraita. Okay, that's pretty serious, right? He thinks this isn't considered jewelry, it's a masoi. Maybe because it was big, it already goes into the category of you're really carrying something. The Chachamim omrim lo tetzei ve'im yatzta p'tura. He says she can't go out with it, but if she did, she's p'tura. That's our classic D'Rabbanan. That's our Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yotzai Isha Be'ir Shel Zahav Lechatchila. You can actually go out with this, no problem. It's allowed. Okay, we're going to have to see why. So, b'mai kamifli, what's the root of their machloket? Rabbi Meir savar masoyu. For Rabbanan savre tachshitu, dil mashalte m'chavya leva atilatuye. So this is what we explain. Rabbi Meir says, this is a burden, maybe because it's so big. Right? You wouldn't normally go out carrying it. Rabbanan say, this is jewelry, and therefore we're worried she's going to take it off and show people. The Rabbi Eliezer savar, man darka lemeipak be'ir shel zahav. Who generally wears this type of ornament? Isha chashuva. Only prominent women wear this. Isha chashuva lo mashapa machavya. It's like beneath her to start taking off her jewelry and showing her friends, right? A prominent woman wouldn't do that. And therefore, now, while we don't distinguish in general between prominent women and regular women, and we basically say jewelry is usher, okay, midrabana. However, if it's a type of jewelry that no one who wears it would take it off because only prominent women wear it, then we could say, oh, we'll distinguish between this item of jewelry and other items of jewelry. Now, you can see why the rabbis didn't want to do this and why the rabbis just said this is part of the general category. But Rabbi Eliezer didn't seem to see a problem with that. He said, this type of jewelry, since only prominent women wear them, we can just say it's allowed. Whereas if it's a different type of jewelry that different people might wear, we don't allow prominent women to wear it and not non-prominent women. That would already get very tricky. So, but if it's only worn by prominent women, then it's okay. So there we have a three-way machloket. Okay, next item, Kalila. Now we're going to talk about a Kalila, which is also some sort of tiara that they wore. Rav Asar u'Shmuel Shari. Okay, Rav says it's forbidden and Shmuel says it's permitted. We're now going to have, okay, there were apparently two different types of Kalilas. We're going to see this in a bunch of things. There were ones that were made of metal, like gold or silver. And there were other ones that were woven with metal or either gold on it, decorative, or maybe stones on it. Okay, so that's maybe the difference between de insecha and de arukta. Okay, sorry, I think I pronounced it wrong, de anischa. De anischa is where they're made of metal. So now there's going to be two variations of the machloket. We have that Rav forbids and Shmuel permits. We're now going to say, well, they actually both agree in one case. And the two different versions are going to say either they both agree that one is forbidden or they both agree that one is permitted. Okay, so we'll end up with different approaches. Right now we're going to start with the more machmir approach, the more stringent one. So, de'anischa kule'alma lo pligi. Everybody agrees that if it's all metal, de'aser. Everyone agrees it's forbidden because that's jewelry that she might come to take off. Ki pligi de'arukta. But if it's woven, the idea is if it's woven, it's not as nice, and she's not going to take something that's less nice, she's not going to necessarily take off and show her friends. Here again, you see that they distinguish between things that people generally would take off versus things they wouldn't. Mar savar anischa ikar, or mar savar urukta ikar. If you have something woven with some gold on it, do you look at it and say, well, this is gold? Or do you look at it and say, this is woven? Do you go by the basic piece of it, or do you go by the ornaments? So if you go by the ornaments and you say it's all about the gold or the silver that's on it, then you say this is jewelry and this is something she might take off. And that's Rav who forbids it. But Shmuel says, arukta ikar. He says, no, the woven part is the main part and therefore she's not going to take it off. Rav Ashi matni lakula. He has a different version of this and he's more lenient. Arukta kule'alma lo pligi deshari. Everybody agrees if it's woven, then you're allowed to go out with it, which means that Rav would allow a Kalila in this case, as long as it's woven. Ki pligi de anischa, but their machloket is about if it's metal. Mar savar dil mashafal m'chavya leva atila tuye. As Rav says, we're worried she's going to take it off. Umar savar Shmuel says, man darka lemepa bekalila isha chashuva, isha chashuva lo shafi m'chavya. The only people who wear these ornaments that are all silver or all gold are only going to be these prominent women, and prominent women won't take it off. And in this case, he basically holds like Rabbi Eliezer. In the other case, right, and therefore, according to Rav Ashi, that's how they say it, which means, and this is the bottom line, which we're going to see in a minute, the Rav actually allows it in a particular case, as long as it's woven. So, Amarle Rav Shmuel Bar Chana Rav Yosef, this is going to support Rav Ashi's reading. Beferish Amar Lamishmei Rav, we heard explicitly coming out of Rav's mouth, the Kalila Sharim, that he allowed a Kalila, which means if he allowed it, it must be that he must have allowed it if it was woven and not if it was metal. In which case, we hold like Rav Ashi. Amrle Rav. Okay, now we're going to have a bit of a story. Within the story, we're going to see there's going to be a story within a story. Okay, Amarav, Amrle Rav. They said to Rav, Ata Gavra Rabba Aricha Lenahardea. There's a great man who's very tall also, right? Tall like Shaul HaMelech, right? They was describing him as very tall and great. So there's a great man who's very tall who came to Nehardea. Umatzla, he lives also. V'darash Kalila Shari. And he said that you can wear a Kalila. Amar, so Rav said, Man Gavra Rabba Aricha De'itla. Who is this person? Levi. Okay, this person is Levi. Shma Mina, we can infer from here, if this person is Levi, says Rav, we can infer from here, okay, now we're in a totally different story. We're kind of leaving the issue of Kalila. The first thing to note is he matir to Kalila. But now we're going to talk about Levi in general, and we're going to see something about that. We're going to learn from the fact that he shows up in Babylonia. What do we learn from here? Shma Mina nach nafshe de Rabbi Apas. We can learn from here that Rabbi Apas must have died. The Yativ Rabbi Chanina Beresha, right? This is how they got news in those days. They see Levi shows up and he starts to make assumptions. If Levi showed up on the scene in Babel and he came from Eretz Israel, it must be that he came here for a reason. Must be because Rabbi Apas died and Rabbi Chanina took over being Rosh Yeshiva. Okay, what does this have to do with anything? Well, why do we assume that? He must have had nobody to learn with anymore, and that's why he came. And that's why he came to Babel. Okay, so you have to know the background story. Rashi tells us part of it. Okay, that basically what happened was, Rashi says, if you look at Nach Nafshe de Rabbi Apas, he says in Masechet Ketubot, it says that when Rebbe died, Rebbe said that Rabbi Chanina is going to become the Rosh Yeshiva. Okay, it was something he said on his deathbed. We're going to actually see reference to it in the Gemara in a minute. But Rabbi Chanina didn't want to be the Rosh Yeshiva. This sounds like the story at the very end of Brachot, if you remember. He didn't want to be the Rosh Yeshiva. Why? Because Rabbi Apas was 2.5 years older than him. Okay, you look at Rashi, says this. And therefore, Rabbi Chanina said, let him be the Rosh Yeshiva. It's not appropriate. However, Rabbi Chanina was a bigger Talmid Chacham. So he didn't want to sit inside the yeshiva because if I sit inside the yeshiva, they're going to treat me as a student. And that's lack of respect. So what did he do? He sat outside the yeshiva by the door learning. Now, Levi said, well, this isn't appropriate. I'll go learn with him because he shouldn't sit by himself. So him and Rabbi Chanina were chavrutot outside the yeshiva for many years. Okay? So now, what happened? Well, if Levi's showing up here, it must be he no longer had Rabbi Chanina who could learn with him. If he didn't have Rabbi Chanina, then why didn't he have Rabbi Chanina? It must be Rabbi Chanina became the Rosh Yeshiva. And then you have to say, well, why did Levi want to go into the Rosh Yeshiva? So go into the yeshiva at that point? Well, again, they were equals. So it wouldn't be appropriate. There was this assumption that if you went into the yeshiva, you were treated as subordinate. He was his equal. He was his chavruta all those years. So basically, he must have gone to Babylonia because he had no more place anywhere in this yeshiva. So it must be that Rabbi Apas died, Rabbi Chanina became the Rosh Yeshiva. So now the Gemara asks, why do you assume that? Okay, so wait, let's just read the Dilma nach Nafshe, Rabbi Apas. Right, so now, the Dilma, so now we're about 10 lines before the lines widen. The Dilma nach Nafshe to Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Apas Kedekai Kai. Maybe Rabbi Chanina died, and Rabbi Apas is still the Rosh Yeshiva, and Levi didn't go in because he also felt, I'm a bigger Talmid Chacham than he is. So why are you assuming that Rabbi Chanina became the Rosh Yeshiva and it's Rabbi Apas who died? Right? This is how rumors get spread, right? We're making assumptions about what the facts are. Maybe he just had no one to learn with, and that's why he came to Babylonia. So what do they answer? In Itad Rabbi Chanina Shachiv, Levi Rabbi Apas Mekav Habakayifle. So they say, really, he could have gone in and been subordinate to Rabbi Apas. That would have been an option. Okay, that's number one. Vitu, and furthermore, to Rabbi Chanina lo sagi de lo malich. It can't possibly be that Rabbi Chanina didn't become Rosh Yeshiva. Why? Because we said before, when Rebbe died, Amar Chanina Rabbi Chama Yatik Berosh. He predicted or prophesized or something. Obviously, there wasn't a prophecy then, but he basically said Rabbi Chanina is going to be the Rosh Yeshiva. Well, you might say, okay, it's nice Rebbe said it, but maybe what Rebbe said didn't come true. Okay, here's how they prove things. Well, it says by tzaddikim in Eov, it says Vatigzor Omer Vayakamlach. If somebody who's a tzaddik says something is going to happen, God makes sure it happens. Okay, this is similar to what we said before a few days ago about God promising something good will happen and he'll always keep to it. Here it's similar about the king. Right there we saw there was one exception to the rule. But in any case, we assume that that came true because Rebbe said it, and therefore we assume at some point he became Rosh Hashiva. So it would have to be that Rabbi Yapas died, and that's why Levi came here, because he had no more chavruta anymore. You could also say maybe it wasn't just he didn't want to go in the Beit Midrash, but his chavruta was busy with other things now, and he had no one to learn with, and he was searching around for chavruta. There was no one left in Eretz Yisrael. It was good enough for him, so he came here. Darish Levi ben Nehardea. Now we're back to our issue. So Levi shows up at the scene in Nehardea, and he says, Kalila Sharu. They're reminding us, because we started with that, but now they're reminding us. And he said it was allowed immediately. Nafik Esrim Va'arba Kalila Mikula Nehardea. All over Nehardea, 24 women went out that Shabbat wearing their Kalila on their heads. You can see the women were dying to wear this, but Rav forbade it, but came Levi and he said it's okay, and all the women went out wearing it. Same thing happened in Mechoza, Darish Rabba Baragua, but Mechoza Kalila Share, Benafku Timnesre Kalila Mechada Mevoa. From one mavoy, one alleyway, which leads to a bunch of houses, right, or a bunch of courtyards, which lead to a bunch of houses, which don't have that many people in it. From one alleyway, 18 women showed up, wearing a kalila. It was a big deal. People obviously wanted to go out on Shabbat wearing them. Okay, now we're going to have a few other items about whether or not women can wear them, or some people actually are going to say that the next item is actually talking about men. Okay, it's a big question. Why would it switch to men all of a sudden? It's not so clear whether we're talking about men or women. The issue becomes a belt, and I guess men wore belts more than women did. So that's why I think they think this has to do with men. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Shmuel. No, this is weird. Shmuel Kamar Share. Actually, how do you read this? 1 second. I didn't catch this before. Amar Rav. Yeah, it's Amar Rav Shmuel. That's weird. Usually it's Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. This is a strange usage. I don't know why. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Shmuel, Kamra Shari. Okay, a kamra is allowed. This was a precious belt, like with jewels on it, or silver or gold on it. Ika de Amre. Sorry, I skipped. Kamra Shari. Oh, yeah. No, Ika de Amre de Arukta. Okay, some people say, what did he mean? It was Arukta. This is what we saw before. Remember the Arukta versus the, we had the two different types, the Arukta and the Da'anischa. The question is, was the belt made of cloth and had jewels on it, or was the belt all metal? So some people say that the belt they're talking about was made of cloth and had, or was woven, and it had the jewels on it. But Amar Rav Safra, midi dehave atalit mushebet. And Rav Safra said, this is just like a talit that has gold ornament on it. Again, cloth with gold on it. The Ika Amre, and some people say, Da'anischa, that it was really all metal. The Amar Rav Safra, midi dehave avneit shel malachim. It's like a belt of kings, okay, where it's all silver, all gold. Okay, now the question here becomes, why is this allowed? It seems that it's allowed. Again, if you talk about men, then the issues already become different. You're talking about that he was keeping their pants up, well, then you don't have to worry they're going to take their belt off, because otherwise their pants will fall down. So obviously, it makes sense that you can wear this because it's actually holding their pants up. Otherwise, you have to explain there's some reason why they're not going to take this belt off. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Kamra Eli Hemyana Mai. What if you put this kamra, this belt, this fancy belt, on top of another belt, right? Then, theoretically, you could take it off. Okay, because you have another belt underneath supporting the pants. Amalei, Trehem, Yane Kamarta. In other words, why are you even asking about this? You're talking about two belts. Of course, you might take one off. Amarav Ashi, Hi Rasuka. Okay, now we're going to talk about a short cloak that people will wear. Ii le mafrachiata shari bilo asa. If it has strings coming out of it, which they would tie onto their body, so it was kind of tied on, then you could go out with it. But if it didn't, then again, there was a concern either it might fall off or you might take it off. Again, this is the ongoing concern. Below the katla. Now we're back to the katla in the Mishnah. My katla, mankita pe'eri. Okay, I don't think that helped you very much. Okay, if you look at Rashi, what does it say? Mankita pe'eri. It's a bega that has shnatzim ke'emech nasayim u'machneset bo ritzura rechava v'kosheret tzviv tzavara v'bega taloy aliba. It's a type of apron or bib that she would wear over her, right? It would go around her neck, cover her chest, okay? And it was, it would either hold jewelry or something like that. So that is what the Kalila is that you can't go out with. It was usually adorned and had jewelry on it, so you couldn't go out with it because of the jewels. Nizamim, nizmei ha'af, they specifically say nose rings and not earrings. Rashi explains, Tosfot disagrees a little, but Rashi explains it with earrings, because their hair was so put up and all that, so sometimes they would, it was hard to get the earrings out. The assumption is they're going to take it off to show their friends. That's only things that are easy to get off. But earrings are more complicated to get off because of their hair and all the stuff that was in their hair. So because of that, I don't know exactly, I guess their hair somehow was covering their ears. Again, that's why Tosfot disagrees with Rashi a little bit about what this is, but there's an assumption that earrings are less likely they're going to take them off. Below b'tabat she'en aleh chotam. So now they say a ring that doesn't have a signet on it. Ha yesh aleh chotam. Chayevet. It sounds like if it did have a chotam on it, she'd be chayevet, meaning it would be asher midoraita. Okay, this would be a masui. Alma lav tachshitu. By the way, this is going to be one of the differences between men and women. So now we're going to say, we're assuming if a woman has a signet ring, it's obvious that that's a useful item, and it's not jewelry. You wouldn't wear it as jewelry. Because as soon as something's jewelry, then again, it becomes allowed from the Torah, but forbidden by the rabbis. This seems like it's not allowed at all, and even by the Torah law, and therefore we assume it's not jewelry. Well, Uriminu, this contradicts another source. Tachshitei nashim, again, we're going to go back to purity and impurity. If something is jewelry, if you remember, we learned from the Miganim, jewelry accepts tumah, right? It becomes tameh, impurities, susceptible to impurities. But if it's not jewelry, then it goes into regular categories of, well, if it's right, only if it's metal, it can be flat. Other things have to have a baked kibul. They have to be rounded that they can accept something inside them. A ring obviously doesn't have a place to hold anything in it. So only if it's jewelry is it going to be tameh. Well, if we assume a ring with a chotam on it is going to be not considered jewelry for the purposes of hotzah and Shabbat, then we have to assume it's not going to be considered jewelry for tum and tara, which means it shouldn't be on this list, but we're going to see that it is on this list. Tachshitei nashim tmeim. Ve'elu hein tachshitei nashim, katlaot, nizamim, tabaot. And here it says, rings, tabat bein sheyesh aleh chotam, bein she'en aleh chotam. And this is under jewelry for women, whether it has a signet or whether it doesn't. B'nizmei ha'af, and also nose rings. V'amar Rabbi Zera, so Rabbi Zera says, don't worry about this contradiction. Ha Rabbi Nechemia, ha Rabbanan. There's two approaches to this, okay? And this has to do with a bit of a different machloket. Tabat with a signet on it, the question is going to be, do we go by what the tabat is made of, or do we go by what the signet is made of? So, Ditanya, as it says in the following Braita, Hi shel matechet v'chotama shel almog. We saw this before. If the chotemet is coral, but the ring is metal, then it's tme'ah. Why is it tme'ah? Not because it's jewelry, but because we already said anything flat that's metal is going to be tameh in any case. Hi shel almog v'chotama shel matechet tohora. But if the ring itself was coral and the chotemet was matechet, then it's tohora. That's the rabbi. So what do you see? The rabbis say it all follows the tabat. Rabbi Nechemia mitameh. He says, no, it's all tameh. Shaya Rabbi Nechemia omer b'tabat halach achar chotama. When it comes to a ring, you follow the chotemet. The chotemet's what's important. Now, if you say the chotemet's what's important, that matches our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said it all depends whether it has a chotemet or not. The chotemet's what's important, and the chotemet is what turns it according to, one second, our Mishnah. Right. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Nechemia, who says the chotemet's important, and therefore we follow the chotemet. If a woman goes out with a chotemet, well, that's not jewelry. If she goes out and it doesn't have a chotemet, then then it's jewelry. Whereas the rabbis say, no, it's all about the ring. It doesn't matter, chotemet, not chotemet. We judge it by the ring itself. So when it comes to tumah, we say a ring is a ring if the ring part of it is metal. We don't care about the chotemet. Likewise, he would theoretically say in our Mishnah then, that our Mishnah would have said a ring, if a woman goes out and it doesn't matter if it has a chotemet or not, because it all goes after the ring. And the ring would then basically say it's jewelry. Okay, we're going to continue with this Braita tomorrow with all sorts of other machlokot between the rabbis and Rabbi Nechemia about, or B'tabat, we're going to see what Rabbi Nechemia holds in all sorts of other cases where do we follow one thing over another. Okay, and what is the determining, when you have something that's made up of two things, what's the determining factor when we say, is this going to be susceptible to impurities or not?